praise to Shakyamuni Buddha. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When, O supreme amongst humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Saviour having great compassion, the founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime reality, to the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all 3 every devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms atoms in all aspects, with supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the faults and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. To page 15, the Heart of Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. Thus did I hear at one time, the Bhagavan was dwelling on massive vultures mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perfection. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, and beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage trade who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly, beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness. Without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element, and no mental conscious element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the endpoint of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the 3 times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as a truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisoha. Shariputra, the bodhisattva mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the bodhisattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoiced. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharideviputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised. That's spoken by the Bhagavan. To page 25 for the short mandala. Sashi poki chukchik mechona rira linjini gempani sange jingdu mite owaye dragu nanda shenla cheba sha jetsa lame da peke nanje jaga gala jenze jenze ne jeta zambe de jenze mala sake chuti chapa babtu so Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnidiyatayami. Sanje Jadan Sanje Jadan La Chanjo Bado Dani Jasan Tage Chujin Jibe Sananji Dola Pinchi Sanje Sanje Jadan Sanje Jadan La Chanjo Bado Dani Chapsuchi Tage Chujin Jibe Sananji Dola Pinchi Sanje Jadan Sanje Jadan La Chanjo Bado Dani Chapsuchi Tage Chujin Jibe Sananji Dola Pinchi Sanje Dola Kange de zenye zave dawa da jeba mani, de bejene de zeve kodam de la chazela. To nye nye je sunde jebe lan, je je sunde kanje de de kwa, chana be ma de ze jaza. Sawa de za jende lan de ja, ban de zeve la mara moche, da ge jiwa ben de de jene, kade jebe kone jaza. Uzan de je ngon to ze de sos. Adang ze kunong kom. 직접 로하다 그래서 미류된 직탈이 레바디 예 tundu레 학자 지치기 인스랑서 지 둘로 칼라사 저거 작듯이 또듯이 되다 먼저 tundu게 지두고 열어라 먼저 미세야 되네 남주 시럽들 하우스에
미루 된데 둔둘레 하고래 나게 데네 딜레 하고지 가르쳐 올라나네 둔두게 펜시라다 고난 삼신데 펜시라다 때때도 더다 가시미 강해라 얻는데 유튜브 기다는데 닝제게 배로가 제거든데 연구도 다 미들레 하고 선자네 미기 남주 시랍디네 지금 마트리네 손하지 아니 가져 톱도 쓰서 얘네 펜타고지 아니 펜도 치도 지기 스로 안 대치 등에 남림님이 300군노야고 직접 쇼스로
Assuming that correct motivation, having obtained a perfect human rebirth, a human rebirth that is over and above what an animal can do. So animals are able to keep warm, to fill their stomachs, to sleep and so forth. But we humans have something over and above that, which is greater, and that is this discriminating wisdom, this intelligence. So, to some extent, animals can reverse degrees of suffering, dogs and cats, a little bit. But humans can do a lot more in terms of reversing adverse circumstances, particularly in terms of just think today, with this perfect human rebirth, I'm going to benefit those close to me. I'm going to have that altruistic intentions. This is what we can do, perfect human rebirth. Please think.
다 가오금로 드린 오늘 다시 삼바상보든지 지여테 믹세 람링 손저 인지 총화데 드린야 개와상고인 텐바 가오금스
Now, rejoice, thinking, particularly today, one has generated such an altruistic, kind heart. And with that, one can listen to the Lamrim, the stages on the path to enlightenment. Rejoice.
아야 다 기생야망서 텐조 대화제 저주 텐조 세야 디골라다 계자 직시에서 말해 대화제단 저주세요와 디 다 람림 디랑 주긴 람림 곰 라고도 다 람림디 단단한 주시 디 sabject 지 신연로 신연이 되는로 같이 글ob정 된대 말했어. 디 마장제 디 디나게 된다데 수수 줄래야 제주요 알아. 배나 텐조 튼진 세디 코란디 디젠데기다 곰잡을 때네 디 똑바 수수 줄로 똑바지야. 곰잡네 똑바지야요 요던데 디르미시 지당게 시제 남당으로 왔는데 디 벨로가 레스티 삼당한테 벨로가 도그랬어.
Yeah. We have been looking at the perfect human rebirth that is qualified by being free of 8 faulty states and endowed with 10 endowments or richnesses, opportunities. And when we meditate on the Lamrim, on the sequential stages on the path to enlightenment, what it expresses, we're not just talking here about getting some knowledge, but really meditating on the meaning so it mixes with your mind. So you actually get the insight or the realization that you have this perfect human rebirth that's free from all 8 faulty states. It should not be something that's separate from your mind.
제단다 베나 되게 용서 람림 샤르곰체 당보와 샤르곰스다 베나 당보 텐조 시기도 아니 대화제디 가르가르가르로 대화제디리디디지 저주디랑 정아 신정아디 스마 당가디고를 때네 타마들라 가르고래 안랑아람베 만에다 직태 다리 근데 니가 왜게네 배 르딘 야고지 니샤 삼제 아니 당보들라 가오공 좋아
나름
디제 마 곰베 타들라 가리용 거래라나다 당아라 대화제단 덴바하와 미콤바 제단 채와 최주야게 네 대화요 하와 최주야 콤바요 아니 최주야 남주 싫어요 밀루딘 니여가 밀루딘 톱 아니 산제 덴바단제 아니 개개인다 툭 아니 수술라 더나요 어디 된데게 네 최주야게 네 콤바요 로 당연히 뒤져다나 콤바요래 계산 텐조스야 돼 말하는 톱샷 삼제 텐조스야 돼 대화제단 저주도 고면 내가라 셈나라베 가와제고지 용구열에서 마야고 삼노당요나 어느 수sem래야 가와제 대화제 가디제 근데 용구열에서
When we go through these stages on the path to enlightenment, we do what's called a glance review or a glance meditation on the entire path. So, for example, if we were doing this section of 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses, that the 10 opportunities, 5 that pertain to oneself and 5 that are environmental, then we would come to the definite summation that this difficult to find perfect human rebirth is something we have, we've got it. And in that light, we rejoice in it. That's the type of, conclusion you'd have at the end of the meditation. And then with that perfect human rebirth qualified by the 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses, 10 opportunities, one then can listen to the Dharma, engage in the Buddha Dharma, using one's wisdom to hear the teachings. For example, over and above that, not only understanding the perfect human rebirth, but that you've met the Buddha doctrine, you have a teacher who teaches it, and the interest is there from your side. So this should make the mind really joyful, blissful almost. Why? Because you realize that you have the leisure, the freedom or the leisure to practice Dharma under the constraint of the 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses. That should make the mind so happy.
세상다 텐조 니가 쓰기도 니가 텐조 니가 칠라로메 이러고 메시나시도 텐조 니가 쓰기도 니가 와들라 빼고는 니가 당하는 류된데 시고다 쓰 류된데 아니 빼고는 니가 유고는 니가 뭐고는 니가 왔다 니가 와들라 봐 어디 시기요다
As Lama Tsongkhapa states, understanding the things, turning away from the things of this life and striving to make the perfect human rebirth meaningful by understanding its impermanence and so forth. Well, what we're talking about is how difficult it is to be human, to get a human support, a human basis in the context of this life. So that difficulty, that rarity is looked at under three headings: by way of example, by way of its cause, and by way of the entity itself, its nature. So those three.
다단다 디 베델라 디 용언조다 아니 루베기 베지어다디 저지 그런저 흘려제 베자 남린 항동당 가서 남들라jan다 주나 로베이나 말 코데워요 아니 베 당하란저 코데 휴지 가려요라나 테마요로 테마
Yep.
테마 찍베간라 떠르베이나 테마 상호 마사산나 칸직스인데 되기도
Yes.
시고간라 테마 떠르이나 이나 찍베들 떠르이나 찍베들 테마 떠르이나 아니 테마 상호 마사용도 테마 칸직스인데 되기도 어디 베디 베 칼레 카고로 되나싱은 좀 밀류된디 다레네 도리두나네 니가 쉬지래 봐. 제가 렌직 잠진이 와서지래 봐. 텐다니와 다레 잠진 송도 아저머진 제가 텐데류된데 니와 다레 잠지래스 베가네 베코란테네 아니 단다디 루베기 베데 데르와 아니 답베디 셰요 집베디 저랑서 로시다 베디 루베기 베디 저랑서 로야시 아니 컵 테마심버 쉐베딩에라 비체 저랑서 데데 로나야 고여다 디 코데 고여 말로나 뎀 쿠마고 케요 말라
So looking then at the perfect human rebirth in terms of example and its rarity, the example that's often used or given is the blind tortoise that surfaces to the surface of the ocean or lake every 100 years. This is clearly stated in the Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. If you have time, this would be good to read that. The example here is when you take some peas and you throw them at a wall, a glass wall, whatever. Well, of course, the majority of the peas will fall down. Occasionally, one pea might stick to the wall. So the likelihood of the pea sticking to the wall is akin to, amongst the 6 realms of migrating beings, obtaining a perfect human rebirth, as Lama Tsongkhapa clearly states, having obtained a perfect human rebirth, which is difficult to get this one time. So that's good to know that example. And the second example that we normally go through about the tortoise.
다드네 니 유고네 니가 왔어야 들어와 유디 당한저 베나두스레 당하란저 언저 류덴데 대상무 당들와 네 류디 니 간에 총어래 봐 간에 총어래 는 알란저 참물로 아마도 바원이 때 제와 지키지 쉐고로 진단 디엔다 지키지 망고 쉐고요다 도 미기 통고요다 델라덴데 제와디 켈렌 쉐고로 디 고원라다 간데 수수요래 디 간데 총어래 디바르다 디 디와디 디 삼라양생 스타나야 고요로 켄자 당아 파마니 제 아마 고변나라 말리콘라 가와이네로 하면나 간데스 레비나다 데로 아니 그저 서르라나 답되고 차로다 그저 서르스 라이샤나 디다 디간라 그저 켈레만에 스지랑아레 딜라 겐두 망고여다 그저 켈레나 상마 그저 서 켈레나 릭바당 모이네주다 미툼바 망고여
미툼바 망고도와
요레데 디랑고이네주도 미투나 타요아요 모라운도 제단다 낭베슈네 아니 카르시고레라나 셰베규로와 셰베규 규응아망아망아마라 되네 요한데기요라 다 규인데라야 먼저 베나 당부 규라고 알아 삼나다나와 아니 애벌 로버질 삼단 애벌게 예랭게 유지 요르와 고제 마제 윤종이지 요르와 싱 자와지 요르와 디예랭 유더와
Mm-hmm.
안델라야 다 현지 시진신이 추단 르단 트단 삼마고르와 디제디야 디 요와디 찬양버지 고르와 제자 고 치기 ngô 주시지래 유디 예랭 유단 현지 시진 유니 용고도
Mm-hmm.
봐 추만다는 르도고도와 추용다는 감도고도와 차와 칙타나 칙도고도 차와메나 감도고도
Mm-hmm.
제가 니콜라야 찬양부 쉬어지고도 와 아니 양 추단 르당 겐 저에게 여베이나 양코 년랭게 신 에볼게 신 년랭 유디 메비나 양 디기면도 하고 제가 치기 오버지기도 당 그림바디다 먼저 수고로다 지부지 냐르 와 제가 메도도 저런 메도도 배울까고로 메도를 삼당로 메도 어디 년랭주 메도 삼면치 다들라 추단 르다 페델라즈 때 망보시 개구라 저런 저로 세겠지 다야 디 지부지 냐르고 추만다나 직직도도 르마타나 직직도 돌아도 도도다 제가 콜라 주진을 보시지 고고도 주마타메와 상와데 뉴마다 마마다 야고시고다 다 대나시래 알아줘게 르덴데 당보 르들 삼다와 르게 제준데 밤에 구달라 되는 총어래 아니 딜 힌지셔야 칼라사야다 좀 망고 총어래 다디 나시야죠 나시야디 준데다 아니 준데 다디 나시야디 저잡도 여러 나시야 저잡도 거다 아니 베나 남식 윤데 쭉 무투제 로데게 요래 마 무투제 용데게 요래 다 망버지게 제가 네 딱박해링 요러 낭바이나 그 뒤제 인자 미다브레 게지게지 요도고 요래 제가 다디 디토랑도다 삼로 망보 땅토이나 펜도 전부 요래스로
Just like ngase, the kanzaki ngase.
간상 단예디 유행하다
Oh, yeah, conventional. Yeah. So then the question comes about, first we looked at the example of being perfectly human, how difficult it was by means of example. What about on a causal level, the second subheading? Being human in terms of the cause, the question comes, how did it come? Of course, we can look at the bodily level of how we came to be in terms of DNA and genes. We can say that, well, that came from the parents, that on that level, but there's a question that's underlying that, isn't there? So even deeper than that, the kind of doubt comes, what was before that? What was happening before we entered into the mother's womb? Before that, and then how's that explained? Some might think that that was made by God. The fact that we've come into here, we're produced by God, and that's the individual's right to think that. But if we think that we are a product of a creator God, then when we look at that view and hold it up to a kind of a valid logic, there are a lot of inconsistencies that contradict that valid logic. So then we go a little bit deeper and we start to look at this thing called consciousness or mind stream in terms of not just the body but the person. So then let's look at it on a grosser level of the outer workings of production. So let's look at an example of an apple. So for an apple to come into being, there is a primary cause, which we would say is the seed of the apple, just as a tree has a root. That's the primary source of the tree coming into being. So, but also that apple has these other cooperative conditions that must be present for that apple to come to be, such as water, soil, fertilizer, and so forth. Now, these primary causes of the apple seed and the cooperative conditions that must be there for the apple to come to fruition, have to be there in a very balanced way. Kind of like these outer and inner things have to be in balance. If one of those is incomplete, for example, if the cooperative conditions are too hot, too cold, if there's not enough water, if there's no soil, If there's too much heat or an imbalance of fertilizer, that apple won't come to be. So there has to be a degree of harmony for those primary causes and cooperative conditions to cause the maturational result. So, and of course, without the primary cause, the apple won't come to be in the first place if that cause is upset. If the seed is upset, let's say. Now, that's how things work on the outer level. And we would say that with the body, it is just the same. You guys some of you like to plant flowers. So flowers work on a very similar level. Flowers have a primary cause, which is the seed and the cooperative conditions, which are similar to what we mentioned above. All of those have to be complete. For example, with the flower, if it doesn't get the heat or the sunlight or the moisturizer, or sorry, the fertilizer, then it won't fruit. And then the body in terms of the substantial level is just the same, but the eye goes through change, doesn't it? The eye goes through change. It's like the weather goes through change. So from the Buddha Dharma, we can look at that in terms of impermanence.
Pena de chuzu de xingjido.
Yeah.
Xingjido danda de chuzu go bagwa chaarago.
Yeah.
Tangma go chu xingre de ro xingdong.
Yeah.
Ta de ne ma che ne go bangle chaaro ro. Ta go jo ro da go jik che de xingcha jik che de bangle che ta danda go chuzu bagwa chaje de do de. Ta de ma ri ri se je ya. De chinga ro se shen ya go chinga chaaro ro.
Okay.
The xing yi ma kan shi la namba de yu ro da da. Tina shi nga se de jikwe yin ba kan shi la sang la chundu nga cha sang la mi nga cha sang la hai nga cha ro yo da. Ode jikwa da xing di go xing yin ba de yin ba jik la ane tina namba ro drama ro yu ro da. Tina shi nga zo nga yin ba jikwa yin ba la sang la chundu chi nga cha nga se tande nga de nga chi jawa mang len sa ro. ane ha gi jawa mang len sa ro. nga zo tanda nga pure do nga jawa mang nga phumo jawa mang len sa. chran zo phumo de phu jawa mang len sa ro. 세상 그 나디 마준도 도가라 안텐데 담담담담 그 민로 주도다고 어디 저단디 친구보데 신디 최저 박바데 되나시 지버래다 뭐뭐 상관을 지버래.
So the changes that happen on an external level and an internal level are the same. Let's look at this clock here that has like a wooden outside. It's made of wood. Previously, that would have come from plank or been made from a plank of wood, and previously that was a tree. And yet again, that wood could be made or fashioned into a mala, or rosary beads. So as we can see, originally it was a piece of wood from a tree, but it has many aspects. It can go through many aspects, many changes. And it's the same with the sense of self, or I. The sense of I can go through many changes. We have been animals, yet at other times humans, many, many times gods, dogs, and then gods, humans again. And then in terms of the bases of being human, we have been males, females. I would have been females many, many times in my previous life. So that basis, which is I or self or the person, undergoes through many changes, just as we gave the outer example of the wood.
제자다 다 튀월래 거래.
Yeah.
다든데 단데 nga pena shine nga micha 그러벨라나. 니데요 맞다. 다디 nga야기 다 이콜라 년년 주디 요래라. 고 년년도 누구요라다 nga디 누구라.
Yeah.
다들 현지 시행게 아니 겐데 주겐데 다 가르고 거래라나. 제가 미르된 터벨라 아니 유디 가르서는 다 믹세기 미 빼당 알아서 다와다 믹세기 미로 차데다 점블링나네 미 믹세로 저래다.
Yes.
와다 지 텐조 차와진세 믹세기 알아저래. 또 가르서는 딜레 체주 숨상고라. 먼저 주네. 수림 레시 메스 반데 다와도 엄마주거나 소문나시. 당보 아니 수림 송으로 와. 수림 시송으로 와. 아니 되네 면람 제마메 참자스로 와. 대저와시마 미르된 스토브라잖아. 상마도 상마 삼로도 땅고 여러 다 세디 디간지고로 고코든 말로 가시에게 가두기 앵자이티든 스트레스 라마가 되기도 디다 개개 말해 거네 저너라 아니 타르 뭐 상단 디다 개개 말어 제가 배겨와 치마디 춘돌레를 하고 밀리든지도 토고도 스테티 토바쇼스 멜람자야 아니 디네다 딜라야 로바치야라야 아니 짐바땅야 소보콤야 오다 지딩이진 콤야 도즈 제고는 진소 파진 투 톡체로 멜람 팀마메 삼샤 수리 남바다베 시송스다 제주 숨데 창고 유숨데 창고래 아 유숨데 창가고 십지래도 왔다 알아서 스타더와 주림송야라 깔레 백하고래 로 아니 다 겨와지만 미르된 토와셔서 멜람 자녀다 공부 쉬어래 겨와지만 거랑 캘렌지면도 알아 공원에 내주래 되시다 캘렌 맞아 그러는 신기요 말아 마신상 캘렌 두고요 말다 망보지라 가려서나 기시 유나 녜 신고랬으라고 그랬어 기시 뭐보지 유나 녜 마신은 요 말했어
Okay.
배티다 셔럽 럭버 녜 마신도 작제요로 잠블링 녜 시버도 마신 망아요로 제가 가시에 녜 마신하나 요 말해 요나 녜 신고랬어 되다 배 도단디 따와디 독자 시지도 안 돼. 배 도자도디 되게 창문 까셔 볼록 잡셔도 창문로 아니 다 겨왕하지 겨왕 정말이 배진 요 말 가서는 게 신기면도 쓰라 대전에다 저는 배 얘기 말해네 녜 빈자데 녜 아자던 주저도 얘기 말해 저는 신기매 와라 녜 아자던 주저 진짜 신기매 와네 그래서 요 말이다 별라도 왜 칼라시 묻는데 요래 요래 야게네 지 추라도 심부셔요들 디서란 디 그래서 저는 신기매 와네 요지 말해네 릭바 개우다 아디라 이나 미망버직 때에 볼록 잡지 되거든 네 들어가지대 근데 네 제상당 알아서 유진숨데 가지고 상도고 돼 따다 교근은 얘가 그래도 왔다 좋아
So then the question is, with becoming, and on a causal level, with having a perfect human rebirth again, the question is there a guarantee that one will again be human? No, there's not. We have a perfect human rebirth at the moment, and the primary cause is there with us, but these cooperative conditions are not easy to get all of the causes together. As Dao Dragpa Chandrakirti says, that the primary causes for being human are ethics, stainless prayers, and then practicing the 6 paramitas. Saying that, how special in the world is it to have a perfectly endowed human support? It's very difficult to get these 3 causes together that were just mentioned, the ethical base, the prayers that aspire to being human, and those that wish to have the wish to help others in terms of generosity, being patient, or ethics, of course, but in practicing these concentrations and things. Well, just look at the practice of ethics. That is not an easy thing to perfect or even abide in. And then, in terms of making these aspirations to be human in a future life, a lot of people don't even believe in future lives. So how are they going to aspire to be human again in future lives if they don't believe in it in the first place? And even we who believe in it, how often do we sincerely make the aspiration to be human again? And then there are those that bring this kind of inverse logic that if you don't see something, it doesn't exist, right? So you have to have empirical proof. So for example, they would say, past lives don't exist because I don't know about it. Some people might say that. And if you're going to look at things under that type of logic, just because you can't prove the existence of past lives because you don't know or see, then you could say, my relatives in Tibet don't exist because you've never met them. You never will have tasted the fruit from the, things that come from the yaks. The trees, the butter and the cheese and because you have no empirical proof of having tasted them, you would say they don't exist. So what's being said is that these 3 causes for being perfectly human are difficult to get together. rare.
제가 단다 먼저 양디 추림 라야 되와 추림 사야 돼. 먼저 양 인지민지기 단당 알아서 지경한다 계주다 된대기 추림 지글로 고 말아. 미기주분 추림 단당 알아서 미쳐 캐만내니도 추림 선거로 와. 아 준식면서 와. 꾸먹고면서 와.
Yeah.
저도 추림래. 미단다 쳐 캐만내니 미도 추림 선거로 건데 와.
Yep.
가르친 거라서는 그 감밀을 준식이면서 봐. 아미 주도 지금이면서. 아미 자라 꾸무꾸면서. 아미 소지기면서. 근데 삼노당연데 대출임네. 대송을 봐. 딜라고 그래야 가시 디찬나다다 인지민지게 미겨랭에 대 인지민지 타외도 아니도 바라보질랭 거스 딜라 곧나 제산 추림라야 돼. 과도 차고라. 추림선은 팀 송이들하고. 팀 가르친 거라서는 준식이면 꾸무꾸면 로임치기면 아니 어두더라다 두두 미초 캐말니 미드도 야고 제거도 상상나 먼저럽죠 저 진예다 마진예도 콘도 장하르지도 콘도 장보미가 배 장보더라 그냥 언제야 파지 망보도다 같이 로죠 망보 진예도서 팀 롱베 유딩게야 상상나 도거더라 먼저 제자라 진짜 망보여 녀도서 랑가게 룰도서 시다 케그면도 같이 근데야 제 축해물이 따다 양 같이 로더라. 대양하고 주림라도 된대라고 보고요다.
When we talk about guarding ethics, we're not just talking about keeping the vows of a bhikshu or a novice ordained sangha, or even abstaining from the 10 non-virtues. There are many brothers and sisters who are not in the Dharma, as we know it, that would refrain from lying, stealing, or killing, and do that actually quite well. So what we're saying is that ethical restraint means really when you're protecting oneself from these faulty behaviors. So you hold them and you protect them. And sometimes even with us who study a lot and practice Dharma, although we study a lot and practice Dharma, there are those that don't practice Buddha Dharma that might even keep their ethics better than us. For that's possible, even though we study a lot. So, for example, some people drive on the road better than us. We're a bit wayward, but some people keep to the road code and drive really well.
땅에 랑가 딜런스 키도 무슨 하고 랑가 팀 잠으로 하고 그래 제가
I'm aware of it because I'm studying it, so I'm looking at who's keeping the road code.
제가 어디로다 그러면 자야도 다 거나시는 니마레레 융달라이나 지 쇼베야 라무다 직접 건다마냐 콜라 직접다 니메공도 내가 저거로 니마레 산이 자도 저거래 쇼베야 라무다가 답에 말한다라야 란주 중화데 군저까지 제네 제자다 나 겨워치마데야 아니지 드링네야 지 겨워치마데 야고지요야다 아니 나랑 내가 저어데 심지신을 편바두야 지기 체려 지금 예삼제 군론제인데 밀루된직다 밀직 디지두비아단 편바두야 밀루된 야고요 인자 신라 편도 두비아시데 밀루된지 토고도 세면람 군론 편바제야 건다만 야갈라버들레 겨워도서 아니지 겨워치마다 지 심지 탐제 제도는 지금 디지두비알 밀루된 약쇼르샤 아니 대토비아기 줄러도 유지 스탠데스 면람다 삼로 툭스탄에 되기요라 면람세도 어떤데라고 인지민지게 라고 태문자 벌벌벌 라고 말해라 셈나네자 셈 띵네자오라 가시 지 라고로 태문자 칸에 책임으로서 삼바 독자 쇼이트네 기도 또 셈데야고 제오라 셈데 면람자고로 메시지 지난다 면람데 책기 자요데 또 셈기자고라 셈데 누가 차요 그래서
Prayer for aspiring to again be perfectly human is something we can do. We don't need to do it all the time, but we should make effort to do this morning and evening. So think that when one wakes up, one is, due to out of the kindness of having met the 3 rare sublime ones, one can make today meaningful, and it goes well, but also with a view to making future lives go well. as well. And then in that light, one is intending altruistically to benefit all sentient beings. That is how one makes the perfect human rebirth go well. And then you again hoping to obtain a similar perfect human rebirth by motivating like that. And then in the evening, any virtues that you have accrued during the day, you dedicate that for the welfare of sentient beings, that they also become perfectly human. And you dedicate this from the heart. It's not just about putting the palms together and saying something sweet from the mouth. Some people might do that, but be quite negatively intentioned. In fact, really here, the main thing is to have a heartfelt sense of what it is to be human, because the mind has tremendous power.
어디 면람 팀맘에 참자하세요.
팀맘에 참자.
제가 팀맘에 봤어요. 다디 단답값되기. 아니 즉 장주쌤께 끌롱게 세우나 면람 팀맘에 차로로 당아라 동해마야 삼다는 란진진 차송 아니 팀마진 차로 아니 세대강하게 디지로 삼다는 팀마진 차로 여러 어디시고.
When it talks about making stainless prayers with a view to being human again, it is that prayer with bodhicitta, isn't it? With an altruistic resolve. If it is just that you don't suffer, or if it is just that you are happy in this life, then those prayers are sullied by worldly thoughts. So they're not stainless.
다 진소 버진도 토진 진바단에 개좀 쉬어래. 양도 진바단에 들어와. 진바단이 롱조용 거여와. 제당도 최지엘라 롱조고도. 롱조면은 아니 엘레다 롱조스는 양 가고면 빼샤. 최지엘 빼샤 고도. 빼샤면은 아니 빼샤 돈다 내가 체 아니 갈래카 아니 최지엘 가고도 와체다. 일단 진바단은 롱조용 빼샤용 거다. 빼샤요나 아니 최지엘 뒤져도 아니 이민지 빼샤 돈다 내가 죽으면도 알아. 빼샤요나 아니 르르제 아니 최지엘 뒤져도. 다양한 뭐 된대 말이야. 빼샤 매두 뒤져요나. 나 빼샤 속어 요새. 빼샤요도 나라 뒤져 매세요. 다 뒤져도 빼샤니가 있다. 나 등산에 코로나 바이러스 까셔면서 홀리데이도 거요. 다 등산 퀸스톤 도스트레체 원나가 온라인에 도스트레체 원인데 또야마 도스트레체 미시면다. 까셔도 뒤하고 청소하고 다 된들라나 하고요 말. 제가 미가시 인데요. 빼샤요도 뒤져요도 빼샤매. 니가 요도 잠잠나 돌아. 양 주일에도 양 빼샤요 말이야 내가 도스체 최지야 말이야. 그래서 네 가래려네. 롱주 지마당 지마 이제 뭐뭐 춘주질에 마시는 따야. 인지민지에게 빼샤고 말이야. 저런서 뭐만을라고요. 하나서 둘로닝 벌어보다 도아지 싱도 딜라 싱도 망고에는 대 싱도 미가시 싱도 요고요라 대 싱도 촐라주고요라. 근데서 밀파 대 제비나 짐벌어. 다 짐배낭 짐바 초도 요하다 가래 초기 짐바 당 안도 최절 되게요 인자 미사와든데 요인데 즉 수수 신인도도 많이 받치지 딜라 벨 항상 남다게 아니 즉 특징이를 대세 잡지 코는 고도비야 정보이나 다 초기 짐바디 다 초기 요발 짐배낭 초기 요바디 초기 짐바래로
Looking at these other cores of being human in terms of the 6 perfections. Generosity, well, the first of the 6 paramitas, we need to have the wish to give because we need wealth. Without wealth, we can't practice Dharma. Well, yeah, in that level, it is much easier to practice Dharma if you don't have to work for a living. You can then just put your energy into the Dharma without needing to struggle for a living. But somehow there is that balance between money and time and money. Some people have the time, but then they think, I don't have money, so I've got to make money. And then some people have the money, but no time. So it is difficult, that balance between the time and the money. Yeah, then there are others who have, due to coronavirus, have the time and the money. And then they go on holidays, for example, Queenstown, Wanaka, Auckland, whatever. They take a little trip. And then when the money runs out, they have to come back and work again. But what's really being said is generosity in terms of the result of wealth that allows us to practice Dharma is the wish to give. So it's good to give here. It's good to give a little here when you can. You don't have to give a lot. Give what you can. You can give like clothes to people that need clothes, or you can give some fruit, whatever. And then also in our situation, working at the Dharma Center, the best thing we can give is the gift of Dharma. So in that sense, if people that are coming here are new, not with a sense of kind of being a know-it-all, but with from the depths of the heart, just giving a few pieces of Dharma advice, that's really generosity.
다야 가시에게 치우셔라 가보죠. 대지교 말이야. 다 미사올을 치우지 신기유도 도저 나제시나 펜도 말. 제외시요. 제와 뭐네. 제외로. 제외 람나 되게 믹스에 누워요 될로. 배고네게 미비줄라 펜베 삼베 제외이나 대 누워치 뭐야. 수수 신기유도 도저 네 보스로 타베야든지 지금 쇼업 체르든데 데 펜도요만 내리디 마시나야 와쇼 가시 셰야가 거보쇼도 미비저기 닝기 요담에 하마가 셰데도 티야야 고요 말에 다야 웃다고 그래 셰서 도면도 그 더나도 면도 와 가시니 저 럽존 지야지도 용거라 가시 저들 가시니 지로라다 깨자 망다 삼노다에 망다네 예수자과 용거라 데리디 때서 가가시하고 거라 아 데라 망보셰 데네주 창고 파셰 주셰 아 미베저 배치로네 갈래카네 데나게 내주다 니뇨라로 정말로 여러다 내주데 딩머리 야데 대셰 아 미디다 가 시디도서 사자 민두로 제자 발라발라 망고 람 펜도 째요 말아 디네주 파셰 펜네주 추이셰나 펜도 째요 말아 제가 아니 디 먼저 베나가 녀게게 딘델라 가부치네요 말아 디네가 베쳐 버리셔 녀게게 먼저 기두께지 셰데디 미거시나 삼샤 요요요요 스피그레 또 빼자고다 근데 라메 남다 근데시나 빼 가버치그레 계지 셰데라 미진다지 아그 발라발라게 어이 가시게 요요요 마피그레로 그래서 나디데지다 백그라운드로 데지 야고요라 과 게겐기가 내리 미신 알아냠네 계적해 말아 네 아니 미 tonda 망고시 두즈 촐라르다 직들 이네 미사바들라 오 미디디 치그다 디디 치그달라네 그 셈나라 데요 말네 계저 야거든이 셰가 말에 누구냐 셰로 니그디지 셰네 그 삼마마지오 셰가네 아니 미가셰 가 다와직 되긴 니만이 숨 되제 도셔다 로야 가 다와직 되긴 셰절라 용래 ngase jagalé 다 데레드 상갈에 데 발라발라 파제 데 술술술랍디 다 가바드나 지우면 당하도셰 니만이 숨는 도셰다 다 딘데 매버셰 오네 게 자외게 콜 종게나 미가시 니마 찡이 되글라나 니마 뒤 다와 찡이 숨 되기도 알아 야 딘데요 안저셔서 고유기지 야부짱데도 미가시 나 둔다지 다와지 다와 망볼 하려야 딘데 야 딘데요 여러분 다디 가르즈는 나랑서 nga chi go le le ma re nga ra chang mo le gen yo ro ka tu na mi sa ba le du ze be kyong je ne chö gi jin ba dang ge na ta khan de ya go re chö nyam ne khan de ya go re ro nyam ne che si yin ji mi ji gom la wa jao en chang ra la wa nya de la go ma ra ngo ne mi le thuk du ane phe ze be kyang tu yin na de da nyam ne ngo ne nyam ne re chö gi jin ba ngo ne ro da de 딩 안저 라렌 따르트야. 데 라렌 따르 투고요. 말한지 추조나나 두즈 캐지 뭐 쇼래 봐. 근데 나랑도 단다 야고도 와데 미드 가고 있음 뭐. 내 마고장 간시로 와. 근데 산 내가 지라 되면서 미시 단다 가고 있음 뭐를 잠딩 되지도 와. 다 이난데라 야르예스니데 탐에베 인상 안저 배 상물로 삽삽체지. 지 미사와시 레브다. 디디디 찌대어 말 콜카가 샤시로. 콜카 샤시다. 네 그런 계지 티용으로 anga chu khar chang ko no da di jang ne ko basic ne ya la bi chene ya o this chene ya go yo ta ding anzo ke chombo re sang ran chu zo na de ni dro.
Well, that's very important in the Dharma Center is that we're not too vocal or we don't show off knowledge in a kind of bossy way. or a prideful way to talk about Dharma. We should do it out of love all the time and out of a thought to benefit others, because if we are prideful or showy about what we know, then there's a question comes whether anyone's going to listen or not. Will they be listening if you have that sort of approach to people when they come to the Dharma Center? Also, it's the case that some people might be coming to the Dharma Center just to be quiet because they've come from a busy place and they might just want to rest. So in that case, if they've come here just to be quiet and kind of take on that peaceful atmosphere, but if they hear a lot, they might end up being tired here as well because they hear 1, 2, 3 things. So therefore, it might be the case that what they end up with is no peaceful place to go, even though they wanted to come to a peaceful place. So in that case, there has to be this flow of beneficial going out and in. It has to be like a good flow. And I have experience of this with my spiritual master, my teacher, who taught us the Dharma. He was very straight, and if there was any extraneous talk that wasn't Dharma, he would cut right there and said, that's it, everyone can leave now. Of course, if the conversation was around spiritual things and the Dharma, he would take interest, but otherwise, if it was about, oh, this person said this and this and this, if it was anything not to do with the Dharma, then it was quickly cut off. So that's very important, because what we have, if we have the inverse of that, and there's no kind of like sense of timing when you connect with people, then people that might have originally wanted to stay months at the Dharma Center might have had copped a lot and then just stay 2 or 3 days and leave. But conversely, if we go about it with a very loving attitude, then the opposite might happen, that they only intended to stay 2 or 3 days, but they end up staying 1 or even 2 months because the environment is suitable for them. So I'm not just talking about myself. All of us here are responsible for the new people that come in. And what we really need to do is not so much talk about, oh, this is how you meditate, this is how you use malas, all of that. Not so much that, but just show them with a real loving concern, kindness, and allow them space. And I think so far we're doing quite well, I think. But what I'm talking about is how we can improve, how we can get better in the future. And I think it's good if we're kind of quiet at first and then go slowly. Tiro.
저다 대송다 좀 내내 너는 진배는 게 초대교원의 지기인성으로 지 간신은 믹진바와서로 먼저 미밍면예질라 믹치대위는 거 가져가 그래라 와 대배대난시 최근에다 마시나 몽바레스 나궁나냐레스로 달려와 먼저 최근에다 마시나 개왕아지 켈랭 말에네 수수 디두 칸에 율라데네 중앙에 하고 미지가 써야 찍찍선 파티한테 셔대고라 다디 최시에온데 아니 지배 렌데지 남자를 이제게다 렌데레온데 sorry 아니 뒤에 가서래 동의 중으로 줘야 그러다 최신이 하는 거죠 내단디 시도 아니 지배 미갸는 뭐 차야다 미디 책서려야 돼 윤디상가라 최대 미진바다 지버래 미 최셰바디 밀라 미진바다 지버래시다 저는 최기 진바디 지면은 초트교래 콜라다 도선시다게 땅만도 와라 지주데스 땅 수수 시엠바딩 오네 제베 랍샤비나 다다게 디고.
As it says in Sutra, of all the things one can be generous with, it would be to give one's very eye to someone. Meaning that of all the types of generosity, the giving of Dharma is supreme. In the sense that really beings are bereft of the wisdom of knowing the reality. So if one can introduce them into the notion of perhaps the existence of past lives, cause and effect, in that way, that would be the best gift of giving the Buddha Dharma that we can give. There are people who don't even know about the law of behavioral cause and effect. And really the goal of studying Buddha Dharma is to lessen the suffering with a longer view, with a very long-term view in mind. And if one is doing this, it's like giving people their eyes, and that would be good to do that with love.
그래서 직들이 니네는 내 개무게로 나와 주지 개무게 시리스 되죠 말이야 개무게로 개무게 짐바 시위인스 좀 된데 송도로 대좀 된데 로주지로 방고지가 나 방고셔야 돼 가르치는 차로에서 좀 된데래야 듀티도 좀 된데 저런 짐바마당 자리에서 나라 짐바다에 나 방고인스로 좀 된데 요래서 저런 짐바다야 가래 요래서 저랑 개무게 있습니다. 어디 짐바랬어? 어디? 제가 배 창mol로 시리스를 되요 말어. 창mol로 무초저스 되요 말어. 개무로 시켜나요.
And then also the gift of being kind of like having your humor. We shouldn't be too serious. We should give the generosity of smiling disposition and laugh, because there's a story of a beggar at the time of Buddha, and the beggar didn't have anything to give, and then Buddha said,
"No, but beggar asking where I become beggar."
Buddha asked, "Why did I become a beggar?" And Buddha said, "Because you didn't give in the past." So the beggar said, "But now I've got nothing to give." And then Buddha said, "Yes, you can. You can give your smile, your laugh. That's the best you can give." And you didn't have to have money to give that.
어디 제다디 주거는요. 당 오거는요. 가서 들어. 먼저 밀이 되는데. 당 오거는서 대 장가를 삼는다나야 왜라라. 변한서 미 장가 되기도. 빌린 듄 학서 저러다. 빌린 듄 학서 고라다. 점링들라. 다 먼저 냐지고 가는 삼는다더라. 장가요 말이냐 냐지고 다 알레 뉴질랜드에 대한 오션이 냐디제 그 장가고란 티예요 말다 그러 아니 장가고네 미 녀가 오래도 왔다 그러 뭐거는 녀가 왔어야 되래도 왔다 그래서 냐지고는 장가잖냐 장가 티야고란 요 말다 그러 미 장가 티기도 하죠 장가매 대비해 소자 진짜 장가고는 녀가 레도 왔네 알아서데 사지 양어스는 북저도와 부르다 그저 접슬로 부르도 아니 부디에 장가 태야 그러면 와다 먼저 밀 다들 장가 태기도 아니 제가 장배 녀가 왔어요 뭐거는 녀가 왔어요 어딜 삼다나 배지 장가가는 삼다데 디야고도 와 수수 가버려 좀 아다 배 미싱 아란다 예 야고시 톱샷으로
One can also think on the kind of entity or the nature of being perfectly human by the number, just by the sheer number of its rarity. So if you look at just look at fish. Okay, so human, maybe how many are we? 7 billion in this world. So then just looking at the fish in the ocean, probably uncountable, just the fish in New Zealand. If you tried to count them in the vicinity, it would be very difficult to enumerate them. And also just taking a scoop of soil from some land, how many insects are there? So just in that light, in terms of that entity, in terms of that nature, we can rejoice that we are human just by looking at those numbers.
제장 알아서 다 류된 된대지 녀샤스로 녀의 인자다 녀디 아니 추수스 땅면에서 따라봐 다 가르쳐 보래요 디 편단된 뭐 추수스면 더 치고도 다디 당부 공대스 잡아서 땅에 밀류된 대화제 조어주는 텐조 녀가르셔 녀가와들은 배고는 녀가 유고는 녀가 오고는 녀가 버리셔 스타디마 삼르는 아직 다들 땅에 밀 말아 배 갈서 그래 즉 이신 누구를 뭐질래냐 안에 배 이신 누구래냐 하고에 다 밀류된 스톱되셔서 세상 다 딩에 아니 돌아마다 맞히고도 스타르와 세상 땅에 대 가르쳐 버서는 다 아니 전단된 것이다. 텐조 전단된 것이죠 그랬다. 와 텐조 전단된 것이죠 그랬어. 다 전단된 거 간대시다래서 상당한데 다 오늘 와다 지 체대강게 또그 담섬 지고 그거 되나 당에 당이 쉐나 쉐리 지 둔두도제 수수 칼라로 가제 상로버스 대기도 거데 그 둔두도 체게면도 제단 다르다 밀루된데 되지 알아서 당이 쉐나 시다 믹스ing 알아서 디게데 한다 산제 템바단 제로 디 나네 한다 제르무진 템바단 제와 렐라오촌 마렌 배 자chen 뭐 겨왕만 알아서 겨왕마디 대화 야고 쉬샤르다 간다. 당은저 겨왕마디를 차세고. 그런 배 토지 체스다. 당아다리 제사치는 노민도 스타로. 다이나 당 알아게 다 삽섭치기 있다. 직초에 가져야 제도도 시제 간다. 직 제너미시다 영아레면도 어두시엔데네. 텐조 텐지 사무도 땅인데 타디베도 전단된 것이 컨데스 치고라 했어. 어디 지워들래 연구도는 아니 저랑 곰자야 돼. 따다 레로고요. 다 곰자야 누워 태운 거다.
So then, having concluded that you do in fact have a perfect human rebirth and you've got it this one time, then the thing to do is to meditate on that, but to use it, to make use of it, to make it meaningful. Those 8 freedoms, 10 opportunities. You first understand in terms of example, causes, and the entities, the nature of it, how difficult it is, but we've got it. And that it is more rare to find than a wish-fulfilling jewel, this perfect human rebirth. So rather than waste it, what does it mean then to make it meaningful? What would that constitute to make one's human life meaningful? Well, as was mentioned before, not just at the level of the animals who can find a degree of sleep, warmth, food, those basic things, temporal blisses, but under the context of being human, we have met the Buddha doctrine. Moreover, the doctrine of Lama Tsongkhapa. Now, on a causal level, that is because of something we did very good in our past lives. So you can thank yourself for doing that in the past life. But then from now on, one has to take care with that in the future. So then when you understand that you've got it, and then you come to meditate on it with that context, with that realization, that's the first sign that you're starting to get the understanding.
어제 다 대회되는 인불렘 매치도 꾸왔어야 되다. 다데 닝은저 곰자인데 다 단당은저도 삼로단데 스스 삼로 코르교도 주제면도 와. 와스스 마 삼로를 스타인데 셈나로 초월을 주는 깨도면도 와. 가래서는 다스 배에 갈서 그래. 아니 다디 남주의 셰럽스나레 심 띵네페 던다디 예원예요 말다 한다. 직대.
Okay.
니데 가래라면 당어도 배데 녀모당 차다당 심 녀모디게 만다 당어들어 와. 아니 디 딥데 당한다. 스스 삼로를 스탄데 자 코야제면도 버르버르 정이 정을 때거든. 디 가래서는 직내 스스 쌤기 배 식디 턴다게 좋아데 용도고요 말이야. 띵 써버지 코도고요 말이야. 니와디다 녀모 망다 녀모 숙치다 녀모 유링다 와 디인자네 배데다 timba 토보 쉬우지 배 딥데다 timba데 timba 파 세고 왔다 간다로 다들 세가 누워치 매인자 다 신디 누워슬로도 쓰는데 다 값스파와 라마 종가와 지불로 검제 되네마 뒤즈베잖아 체제 당에 신이든 저거 또버제야게 아니 파적인 바디게 됐다 파 타송 상네 다 피부 캐션 최고다 매버진 다 지단다 라면은 줘서야 된다 개좀 쉬우차고요 당보스에서 고민을 시켜 용구면도 아니 라마래 소다 아니 둥이나가 라마 종가봐도 라마 종가봤다 단다 갑디 람리소나 딜라 대화요 인산 디 검지 대제 되네마 지원네마 니가네마 외세까마 팅숨 용 아니 데스스 르르마 주 아니 주베 도비 안 단다 지 텐조 텐지기 따 도버지 람링기 도버지야기 파주신이기 디게데 상황만 타서 텐제 어디 된데 시제는 소와데 라마를 소와데 다 제단 람림도 셰라 다 라마라 소와 땀나 아니 라메 진랍스는 주야라 펜도요 수술 누가 말아 다 잡지 조고요 산다 두 세비는 안 믹세게 소와 근데 깨요 딱 한다로 대바 근데 야고 여나 당하는데 대원이 야고 요래 다 대와 야고디 야고 세비나 아니 야고 차로라 어디래 다 디멤버 체제 먼저 디 최디 뉴 에이지 소리 지금 담바이나 빼독자르다 와 수수 되바이와 인상 최디 수수 되베가는 바 담바이나 빼독자르데 바제 첨부를 쳐려라 말한저 쌤디 최나를 야즈 유튜브 책으로 미시 최디 먼저 쌤나는 망아란저도 tumba 체나 아주 뉴 에이지 차로다 뉴 에이지 데이터 철을 바제 첨부를 담다이나 오늘 라보스 최디 라보스요라 먼저 잘라도 무슨 베티 가서래 둘리게트 쓰였다.
Yeah, 탄낭.
대야고 말아봤다.
So then, this is really this heading of perfect human rebirth is like exhorting us, spurring us on, inspiring us to develop the feelings of what it is to be perfectly human. Our problem is we don't get the deep heartfelt realization. We don't get the deep feeling, and why? Because we don't actually have the wisdom. We haven't yet got the wisdom or the depth of the insight hasn't been reached that we have this perfect human rebirth. First thing. Second thing, our minds are quite thick with delusions, invalid emotions. We have desirous attachment, we have aversion. It's almost like our minds are covered with these emotions, right? Churning. And because of this, we're all over the place. And due to that, the mind really from its depths gets no taste of what it is to be perfectly human, gets no kind of, no sense, if you will. Secondly, not only are the afflictions we have strong, but they're long. They've been with us for a long time. And this is very much like a dark cloud that's quite difficult to remove. Okay, so how can we remove such obscuration from that insight? Who can remove? Well, we have to do the Guru Yoga. Here, we do the downward flowing nectar-like visualization, the Duti Bebjang. So here, you visualize Lama Tsongkhapa inseparable from your Guru, aspect Lama Tsongkhapa, entity your Guru, and then the white light comes down and purifies your body, speech, and mind. So you get the blessings of the spiritual friend, and the spiritual friend, within that context of meditating on Guru Yoga, those light rays enter through your crown. And then what happens is that, you're getting these insights. You're beseeching the Guru, please remove these obstacles, these afflictions that we mentioned, so that you can get insights into the perfect human rebirth that has these 8 freedoms and 10 opportunities. You beseech the spiritual friend. So whenever we are practicing the Lam Rim in that context, if we're going to talk about merging or mixing our minds with the Lam Rim, the sequential stages on the path to Buddhahood, we have to get the blessings. Otherwise, we can't get the realizations. So to benefit the mind, we need the blessings of the Guru. So we're at the stage where we have the connection, we have the opportunity, but we haven't yet made it happen. There's a danger here that if we just leave it at the level of not mixing our minds with the Dharma, that it just becomes like a new age thing we study. Or let's say the Buddha Dharma becomes weakened. It becomes weaker and weaker. And it would be sad if the Buddha Dharma became kind of mixed, so it became just like New Age.
되네 찍데 다 90매요 돼 배도자 90 제고는 들어 90 채는 아니 밸류드 레그라 90매나 밸류요 밸류매나 블레싱 요 맞다 근데 상마 땅념 지지요 말해서 리스펙트 지오레스 줄.
Yeah, and then also another warning is that we don't pay enough respect. And if there's no respect, then that really degenerates the value of something. We have to have that heart of equanimity.
어디 삼는 데 스tambe 돈에 다디 람린이 맞죠. 디다 제르무지랑 그 숭기여 텐제는 마된 쇼스라.
So now that's something to reflect on for this evening. And when we read this together, please think that one is visualizing Lam Tsongkhapa in the space in front, and we are getting the advice directly from him as he is giving it to us.
Yeah, start.
I bow my head to you, the foremost of the Shakyas,
whose body is formed like an emanation of Asia's virtues and excellence, whose speech fulfills the various whose mind perceives all objects of knowledge.
I prostrate and Jushu whose emanations, assuming the responsibility of all corporates conduct. You are the Supreme Sons of the Fearless Teacher. I prostrate at the feet of Nagarjuna, the son of all necessary.
Lido Janjo Lanjirma, Jugo Dende Pande Leva Jeve Jazo, Demba Danje Mendo, Sura Male, the Marshawa. Yeve Gomba de la Neva, Danje Jembo Yanza Legend, DJ Jave, Kende de Madembe, Dambaji, Jibo Zanje Lanjirma, Ira Meda, Jende. Sura Gwenje Nyambo de Wasi de Nanjembe, de Dande, Labjen de Wagin, de Ned de Jele, de la Vaga, de Chinama. Sanda Jeve, the Jedema, Tonezo Janje, Pachin de Chuvanya. De la Menyan, Tanda Jandation, Tibet in the Ishin. Ranya Vadare Zanshi, Nigajila, Nangela, Tudeza, Nejidensho. Baba Java Jundu, no Juni, Jagun, Yangwa, Jidela, Tanda, Chinang and Obeja, the Meja, Jagunjo, Jamdo Jindu, Labjan. Yagana Lendeles and Lando Zindu, Jidela, Jora la Tineza, Maneva, the Sajame, the Mazami, Uzo de Don de Majawa, Yelava, the Bejo, Maneja, Junior Dojeza, Zella Vanyala, the Yadis, Tudinia, Missing La Marena, Tudinia, Mezala Mabena, the Niji, Punjonga. Kovezo was the Meje, Siling, John Juja, Mahon, Koa, Hangi, Chua, Shivon, Lamanian, and Senje de Jolam, Jishun, de la Janjova, de la Sonia Gola, Sijuan, Ranjan, de Virgin, de la Genesis, Pavona, Jason Jordan, de la Mania, the Jimbo, Sene de Wajir, the Judge, Machine, and the Jibe, the Dojane, the Dalan Jagger, Yoda, the Sirene, the Mother, Numanda, the Jugo, and the Lambo, the Waja. Toje de Wame, want to go to Dashine, and Dalam, and Tabana, Jimis, so on there. Zela Maya, the Subadum, you want the work of the Venture, Shinala, the Dashine. Namana, the Mido de Bezin, the Governor, the Jolan, the Dajanele Logan, some days la one javo, the Shanayo Mary, Moshi, Dana, give me the Rajan and Jombo, Nana, Rajan, Shirazamadi, the Messi with our tradition, Suragun, Timo Mezen, Major, the Tedashin, and Beva. Lamde Beva, the Major, the gentleman, some days on cause. So, you and your mother, Chanel and Anderson, Shilan, you know, Pedagation. You mentioned the legend and Tado, Madam, and time. Tazi mi de dan je 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 ci je ne shu na ni de ba le de je de ma sa de de ti je ko me tin de ma ba je de de no ne su da da wa yin na la yo me je de de ba ne ba ne tin de je wa de ne shi la ne su de do la za yin de la me nya le de la je da ne de je de la nyam ja na ngo de be no ma ni je do ji ma de be ko ne da je de de la je de je wa pa de je da de ne je na ne se ma mi de 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 la me nya le de la je da ne de je de la ju da de we de ne am jo ni go de ma ne je je ne de ma ba la de ne chu ne yong zo me nga de ma je de jo de wa de ne ma je de le me ne da de ne rang ge ye la gu ba je je na ge san chen na pen ba je ye je yo je ve lang lang yan se me ko le nga ge she wa ne zhuo wa guen jia nan da lang san ji che me ju je je ne me la de ye de je ne na de ba la na me de ba da je wa de ne me de me ge wa de zhuo ma ne ma shi ne be ai la ma la dan ba de ga de ne za de wa je na ta be je ga ne ju ne ja da so go je do ma je ma je me la de ne wa je je me la da ma je je de wa ma de de pa de ju no de je de ma je na ta ma ni ze gu ne nyam se la go je de me ju no de shi de zo de de shi ne ja de ma je ten ba ye re ma ju je shu ye wa zong ge re shi de na ma pe wa na ge ye se ma shi wa na tin je ma ni sa wa shu
Morality is water cleansing the stains of faulty behavior, moonlight dispelling the hot torment of the afflictions, as splendid as Mount Meru in the midst of the 9 types of beings. It gathers all transmigratory beings with no threat or force. Having understood this, holy beings guard morality correctly, taking as they do their eyes. You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. Patience is the finest ornament of the powerful, the supreme for hardships counteracting the torment of afflictions, a Garuda against the enemy, the snake of hatred, and thick armor against the weapon of harsh speech. Having understood this, cultivate the armor of supreme patience in many ways. You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. When you don armor-like efforts steady and immovable, the qualities of scripture and realization will increase like the waxing moon. All your behavior becomes meaningful, and whatever actions are undertaken will be accomplished as desired. Having understood this, the conqueror's children put forth billowing waves of effort dispelling all laziness. You, the perfect Guru, practice in this way. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. Concentration is a keen rule in the mind. When placed, it is immovable as Mount Meru. When sent forth, it engages all virtuous objects. It induces the great bliss of a serviceable body and mind. Having understood this, the lords of yogis rely continuously on the meditative stabilization that destroys the enemy, distraction. You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. Wisdom is an eye seeing profound thusness, the path of rectificating the root of existence, a treasury of qualities praised in all the scriptures, and renowned as the supreme lamps dispelling the darkness of ignorance. Having understood this, the wise with desire and liberation generate the path with much effort. You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. One point of concentration alone is not considered to be able to cut the roots of samsara. Wisdom separated from the path of karma abiding will not avert the afflictions no matter how much you analyze. Having mounted the wisdom that reflects on the real mode of existence upon the horse of steadfast karma abiding, with the sharp weapon of logic of the middle way free of extremes, destroy all mental fabrications grasping at extremes. With vast wisdom analyzing in this way, increase the wisdom that realizes thusness. You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. The meditative stabilization achieved by one point in meditation is not enough. with the individual investigation of proper analysis, generate the meditative stabilization that abides firm and immovable on the mode of existence. Having seen this, understand how wonderful are those who endeavor to accomplish the union of calm abiding and special insight. You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. In meditative equipoise, emptiness is like space. In post-meditation, emptiness is like an illusion. Through meditation on both method and wisdom are unified, whereby the perfect conduct of the conqueror's triumphal victories. Having realized this, the tradition of those of good fortune is not satisfied by either path alone. You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. Having generated the common path necessary for the two supreme Mahayana paths, the causal and resultant, rely on a protector, a skillful master, and enter the creation of the classes of Tantra. Then, through reliance on complete and perfect instructions, make the attainment of your leisures and endowments meaningful. You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. Due to the virtue from explaining in clear words the perfect complete path pleasing to the conquerors, so to familiarize my mind with it, and to benefit others of good fortune, I made the prayer. May all transmigratory beings never be parted from the excellent pure path. You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way.
Yeah, finish.
Page 31 for the short mandala. Sashi Jetsa Lame Kutse Rapteji
Nanga Dele Joju Jewada Monsam Deme Deme Sasum Ye Drove Mese Dado Niguchi Guru Rane Mendela Kanye Atayami.
Page 33, Prayers of Dedication. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha, and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Whatever slight positive potential I may have created, by paying homage, offering, and acknowledging my faults, rejoicing and requesting that the Buddha stay and teach, I now dedicate all this to full awakening. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best, by the victorious ones thus gone of the 3 times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva's deeds. May the King of Dharma, Sankhapa's way of Dharma practice flourish. May the omens of obstacles be pacified, and all the conducive circumstances be complete. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Saviour of the Snowland teachings and transmigratory beings, who makes extremely clear the path that is the unification of emptiness and compassion. To the lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso I beseech,